I'd like to see the money that is going to the insurance companies by the hundreds of billions of dollars. The stocks are up through the roof over a fairly short period of time because they're getting vast amounts of money. I want that money to go to the people directly and let the people buy their own health care. And they'll get much better health care than they get with the Unaffordable Care Act. Let the money go directly to the people and let them buy their own health care.
President Trump, along with Republicans, prioritizing the cost of health care as the Obamacare subsidies are set to expire at the end of the year, 2 weeks' time. House Republicans passed a bill that they say will lower health care costs by roughly 11% for some Americans. Meanwhile, Senate leaders are close to a deal on a 5-bill appropriations package that would fund 85 to 90% of the federal government through fiscal year 2026. And that would pick up where the funding ends the end of January. Joining me now is Florida Congressman Greg Steube. Congressman, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. What are the plans?
Well, so we passed this bill yesterday, that would lower healthcare costs by 11% across the board and allow people to pool, small businesses to pool health insurance, so it'll lower the cost of premiums. We should not be extending the COVID-era Obamacare, which has raised premiums on Americans 55% since it's been enacted. I want to thank the president for bringing attention to this HSA issue. It's a bill I filed for the last couple of years that would allow, instead of money going to Obamacare and the ACA tax credits, that money would go to you as a taxpayer for you to decide how you spend that money. It would go into your HSA. You choose what plan you want to go into. It would lower the cost of health care. It would lower the cost of insurance across the United States. And it's a great idea. I want to thank the president for bringing attention to the issue.
Yeah, I know, but you're not extending the subsidies. And let's face it, the fight over Obamacare subsidies getting extended is what caused the record 43-day shutdown. So are we going to see another shutdown?
That's a great question for Democrats in the Senate, which is why I've called repeatedly to end the filibuster. So that's going to be a question for Chuck Schumer if he's going to shut the government down again at the end of January. There's a discharge petition now that has 4 Republicans that have signed on to the Democrats' extension for 3 years. So the speaker is going to be forced to bring that to a vote when we get back in January. There's a time period that takes to go through. So I would imagine the first or second week of January, if they move forward with that and don't remove their name, we're going to be forced to vote on that. But the Senate has already taken sides on this. They voted for a Republican measure on this that failed, and they voted for the Democrats' extension on this that failed. So I don't think that bill, if it does pass the House, goes anywhere in the Senate.
Well, I mean, the problem is your colleagues on the left want these tax credits, these Obamacare subsidies, to get extended. I spoke with Ro Khanna from California the other day, and he would not say for sure if, in fact, he would vote for a government shutdown again. Watch this.
Private health insurance is what's bankrupting America. It was happening before the Affordable Care Act. The solution, as everyone knows, in my view, who studied this, is Medicare for all.
Do you believe that if you don't get any solution on these extensions of Obamacare, do you believe that the Democrats should shut down government again at the end of January?
I've never been for a shutdown in terms of just getting our way. I am trying to negotiate. One of the issues that we've tried with Michael Lawler, with Kevin Colley, to Republicans, is to say, let's just do the extensions for a year or 2 years.
Yeah, but wait, let's be clear. You voted to keep the government shut down.
Because they did not come even with a compromise. We can get a compromise, even though I'm for national health insurance and Medicare for all, even though I would want to have the Affordable Care Act subsidies be permanent. If we come up with a compromise that at least keeps people with health insurance this coming year in 2026, I'm open to voting for it.
Would you support a government shutdown if that doesn't happen?
I believe it will happen.
So, will it happen?
Well, the question is that he has no control over the Senate Democrats. The House passed a CR. What happened was it got shut down in the Senate because we have a 60-vote threshold over there. But I definitely think the Democrats are going to use this as leverage, which is why the last CR, which has been the 9th CR since Speaker Johnson has been Speaker that we have passed, I voted against because it was a short-term CR. Because now we're facing this exact same scenario again in January. And so now we are in another scenario where Democrats in the Senate could shut down the government again. And until Thune does away with the filibuster, at least to fund the government. I mean, you can do it in a narrow, tailored way like he's done it with all of Trump's appointees to get Trump's appointees through. Do it in a narrow way to fund the government, and only you need a majority of senators to do that. But if he refuses to do that, and Chuck Schumer doesn't want to vote for a CR that doesn't extend the ACA tax credits, we could very likely be in the exact same shutdown scenario at the end of January that we were in earlier this year.
Yeah, look, I don't see any scenario where John Thune is going to get rid of the filibuster. I mean,
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah, he's been so clear on that. Look, let me switch gears. President Trump signed an executive order which reclassifies cannabis as a Schedule III drug, a less dangerous drug, marking the biggest federal shift in marijuana policy in decades. You're calling on the House to consider marijuana scheduling bill. What is that?
Yeah, so I've sponsored this for years. In the state of Florida, we have medicinal marijuana that was approved by the voters by ballot initiative. When I was in the state house and state senate, I was very involved in that for medicinal purposes. The ballot initiative passed. At the federal level, it's still Schedule I drug. Now, that's changed, obviously, after President Trump's executive order, but people couldn't even research it because it was at the same schedule level as like fentanyl, which is obviously not the same category of drugs. Researchers, universities, nobody was able to actually legally research the effects of medical cannabis. And then you had states like Florida that allowed medical cannabis, but then you had it still as a Schedule I drug and illegal. So you've got different medicinal cannabis operations that have to work in cash. I support what the president has done. It'll allow universities to research it. It'll allow the country to have a more fair framework as it relates to the relation of the drugs. It's still a prescribed drug. It's still a Schedule III under the EO. My bill would codify what the president has done. I've had it filed for years. Maybe the president will, with his support and changing the EO, maybe that'll help push it through Congress. Yeah,
you know, it's interesting because yesterday all the so-called cannabis stocks were down sharply because there was the thinking that Big Pharma is going to come in with cannabis-related prescription drugs.
Well, in Florida, it's capped. There's licenses for the medicinal cannabis producers. So in Florida, it's different. I think I can't speak to other states, but in Florida, there's specific licenses from the state of who has the ability to produce that.
And that's why those stocks were down. They think that'll go national. Congressman, you also recently introduced the so-called Disposing of Inactive Structures and Properties by Offering for Sale and Lease Act. This is called the Disposal Act. This bill would require the action of unused and underutilized federal buildings. Tell us about that. How many unused federal buildings are there right now?
There's a ton of them out there. There's like 7 of them just in Washington, D.C. that we call ghost buildings that aren't being utilized. It's like more than 60% of the buildings not being utilized by federal workers, yet we're still paying for all of the costs associated with that. If we're not using the buildings, we should dispose of them. We should sell them. It's the smart thing to do. If you were a business operator, you would do the exact same thing. You wouldn't be paying for buildings that you're not using. I want to thank Senator Joni Ernst for working with me on that. This is a bicameral piece of legislation that would just call on the federal government. If you're not using more than 60% of a federal building, then you need to take necessary steps to sell it on the free market and allow taxpayers to refund some of that money.
And do you think that situation could also mean that maybe we can have more housing? I mean, why not turn those buildings into housing? Todd Pyro, we keep talking about all of the supply issues in housing. That's why I'm raising this. Jump in here, Todd.
I think it's an amazing idea you have, Maria. My question for the congressman, I love the fact that you're doing this. Why hasn't this been done already? Because, I mean, let's be realistic. These buildings, in large part, have been vacant or close to vacant for years now.
No, you're absolutely right. This should have been done years ago, or should have been done as federal government buildings aren't being used for that purpose. They can either be used for another purpose that they're actually being used, or sold so that the taxpayer is not on the bill for that. I think doing some type of affordable housing issue, especially in places like Washington, D.C., would make a lot of sense. Even in my district in Sarasota, affordable housing is a very significant issue because the prices of real estate in Florida and rentals in Florida has been skyrocketing.
All right, we will leave it there. Congress, always a pleasure. Thank you so much, Greg Steube.
Yep, good to see you.
You're going to be playing ball in Florida during your break?
Yeah, June 10th. They just named the congressional baseball game. It'll be June 10th this year.
Awesome. Practice that pitch.
That's right.
I'll see you soon, so thank you.